So far we've got D distance. How far are we, and what club do I need to hit to actually center my shot pattern distance-wise over the decade target? E expectation is just a psychology trick to help you control your expectation management and not make bad decision after bad decision trying to get back early bogeys in a round. C correct target, which is how far we need to be aiming from the edge of the green, and as I've been saying repeatedly, for starters. And that for starters is really the critical piece, because obviously there are places to not miss it. There are places that are easier to get it up and down. Those are all kind of old cliche sayings in golf, where's the place to miss it? But actually, the real question in golf course management isn't where's the place to miss it, it's how much do I not want to be short-sighted. This is where we start talking about A, analyze. Let's jump back to number 5 at Pebble Beach to see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's start by taking a general look at the entire hole. Obviously we've got the back tee box back here where it plays anywhere from 175 to maybe a little bit over 200 yards depending on the hole location and the exact tees. We've got the forward tees right here, and obviously we've got the green with the Pacific Ocean on the right hand side, and over here this is all pretty bad stuff. And so while yes, the ocean is not a good place to hit it, let's take a look at how far it is from here over to the sidewalk, over to the cart path. It's 40 yards, and yes, that's plenty of room for the majority of PGA Tour players' shots from this distance. I guarantee you that amateurs are going to hit some balls over here into, I think it's Charles Schwab's house. This is in play, as is obviously the ocean. But for the most part, the traditional question is, where's the place to miss it? The place to miss it is left. But the real question, in my opinion, again, is how much do I not want to be short-sighted? Well, in this situation, it's a literal one-stroke penalty. I really don't want to miss it short-sighted. Sure, there's a lot of places where up and downs are really difficult and whatever with most greens, but an actual one-shot penalty is the worst outcome for the most part you can have. Obviously, you do have a lot of holes over in Europe where number 18 at St. Andrews, we have out of bounds right. But for the most part, that's not the way golf courses are typically designed, even in Europe. Now, once I flip these images to where they're running vertically and bring in the ShotLink images to show the PGA Tour shots from this year's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and you can see that there's some shots hit to the furthest right over here. Obviously, there's ones even further right. And on over here to just left of the bunker to just right of the green encompasses most shots. There are some hit over here on the cart path, and there are some hit over here into the ocean. But for the most part, it's basically the edge of the bunker over to just right of the green. This line underneath this ellipse, as you can see, is 30 yards. So what this ellipse right here is obviously a 30-yard wide shot pattern. Now I'm going to tilt it to give a right-hander's perspective of shot pattern, because shots typically the left side of your shot pattern is long left, the short part of the right part of your shot pattern is short right. And this is where it can usually start hitting home that even if I made this shot pattern significantly larger for an amateur, if I tried to make the amateur more conservative than a PGA Tour player, they're just going to hit so many balls over here that they're going to drive their scoring average up. This is why, really, for the most part, it doesn't matter if you're a PGA Tour player or an 80 shooter. Course management, the math, really spits out about the same targets. It's certainly close enough that you can just learn the generic decade system and apply it to your game, regardless of what your actual scoring average is. When I bring in the actual scoring metrics from the event, just to kind of illustrate this idea, there was a double in the first round, 3 in the second round, including a triple, a double in the third, 2 doubles in the fourth, and 2 triples. But there were no penalty shots at all. Penalty tendency, there was none. All of these, it was literally 5%-ish of the total scores were double bogey or higher. If amateurs played this and got overly conservative and put more of their shots over here where the vast majorities of those doubles and worse came from, I can assure you their scoring average would blow through the roof, just as bad if they went ahead and hit their tee shot into the water. It's actually kind of a funny, it sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. If you're going to hit it in the water, it might as well be on the first shot and get the distance up here into a better place to then have an easier chip shot from here. then putting it over here, and then putting that into the hazard or something crazy. All I'm trying to illustrate with this is that there are places that are worse to miss it than other places. The idea of missing it in the correct spot is accurate, but it is somewhat semantics to say the real question is how much do I not want to be short-sighted. Let's listen to a clip that I saved from a few years ago. I apologize, the audio is not very good, but I was just recording it off my TV on my iPhone, where Chris DeMarco is describing a par 3 at the U.S. Open at Erin Hills, and how he's saying that his yardage book would have a big X over here as being the place to not miss it.
This is all a collection area down here, so if you come up just a little bit short, that's going to roll all the way back down here, which is going to leave you a very difficult chip. So left of this green, even if you chip it or miss it left of the green over here, chip into that pin is not going to be real difficult. So you have to be on the left side of the screen. But they do a great job with the design because they give you that ridge to get the ball all the way over to the hole.
They give you that option. So whatever you want to do, you want to bring this in from the left, even if you roll it in, or even if missing it long isn't too bad, an approach shot.
In my yardage book, I have a big X right there.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, false front on the right side.
What Chris describes there is what basically every PGA Tour player's yardage book looks like. It'll have a bunch of X's, don't miss it here, some checks to miss it here. Actually, let's bring in another slide from my actual seminar where Danny Willett, on the eve before he was defending his Masters Championship a few years ago, he tweeted out a picture of his yardage book saying, "My homework's done," and he's got all his Sharpies and everything. It's a beautiful looking yardage book. But let's take and zoom in on what his yardage book actually has. He has these 5 big black X's running across the back. This is number 5 green, and yes, I have luckily got to play Augusta once in my life, and I can assure you long on number 5 is absolutely dead. But then over here he's got okay. You know, this bunker, it's not exactly okay. It's running away from you. This is not a great spot to be. And almost as important is over here to the right, he doesn't have anything. And if you remember, this is where Tiger in 2019 in the final round, his second shot finished up right over here, and he had that putt coming across that ridge, and he hit it about 15 or 20 feet by the hole because it was dead. If we're going to use the X methodology like Chris DeMarco does and Danny Willett, we need to have some black X's over here for sure as well. I've now created a yardage book for Pebble Beach within the Decade app, and you can see I've gone to number 5, the hole that we've been discussing here. And what we do different in Decade versus how you saw Chris DeMarco and Danny Willett address the idea of where not to miss it, is during your practice round, I want you to pretend that there are hole locations cut 5 yards from random places all around the green, and I want you to simply ask yourself the question, how much do I not want to be short-sighted to that pretend hole location? Because if you think about it, from right here, always the place to miss it is going to be over here. Always. But how much is really the critical question in learning proper course management. So the real question is, right here, not that this is an X, it's to what degree do I not want to be. It's somewhere between an X and OK, like Danny Willett has X's and OKs. It's somewhere between those two things. So if this is an X, how much of an X? This is what the A for analyze represents in the Decade acronym. In this case, missing to the short side of the right pin is an ocean. That's a bad thing. It's a literal one-stroke penalty. You simply must find your golf ball on the vast majority of your shots regardless of your handicap. So what we do different in the Decade system is rather than using X's and checks to illustrate how bad a short-sighted miss is, we assign a number to each potential hazard. In this case, that number is a 3, since a penalty situation is the worst outcome possible for an approach shot. We then consider the other possible hole locations on each green. Remember, this is meant to be done during your practice round in an emotionless environment, which is really the critical ingredient to the process. It's this removing of emotion from the decision that allows you to make optimal decisions with ease during a golf tournament. I can expand upon this idea a little bit easier by using a few more shot link images. So in this left image, the shots are coming in from left to right on both of these. But in this left image, you can see in this front right bunker, they were 0 for 4 on getting this ball up and down that day. Now, you can also see right here, there are no golf shots that stayed right here. That's actually because this is a pretty big slope that runs away, so any shot that lands here is going to run out a decent amount. The other side of the green, this bunker, they were 3 for 6 on getting it up and down, and that's because they kind of had the reverse effect. They had a little bit of a backstop that would contain these bunker shots. So this bunker shot is easier than this bunker shot. If we come over here to this green on the right, you'll see that they were 11 for 12 on getting it up and down this day, and actually the one that they didn't get up and down, the guy actually holed. Notice here there's no golf shots either, and that's because this is a big ridge that comes back towards the hole, so any bunker shot that you just get out of here is either going to hit that ridge and collect back, or it's going to come out perfectly and release to it. As long as you get it out of this bunker, it's going to go within 6 feet, so this is a really easy bunker shot. Now, for my fellow math nerds out there, I'm well aware that a sample size of 4 or 6 isn't really relevant. 12 is getting up there, not too bad. This is obviously an easier bunker. This one they might have just missed a bunch of 5-foot putts. What I try to tell my tour players, and obviously this is where it's easier to do with a tour player since we have ShotLink images to work with, but what I tell them is I need you to use your golf IQ. When you see a bunker that's 0 for 4, is there a reasonable story that you can tell yourself as to why that might be the case, all the way up to 50% and then all the way up to 100%? Is there a logical story that makes sense why these bunker shots would be easier or harder? And once you've done that, once you've considered the depth of the bunker, what the feature is immediately between the bunker and the hole, meaning is it running away, is it somewhat stopping it, and then what's kind of behind the hole, is it stopping it as well, is it a backstop that way, then you can assign the appropriate values. Again, this is where Decade is part art, part science, part math. This is the art part. This bunker is for sure worse than this bunker, and this bunker is for sure easier than this bunker. This is a 3. It's basically a one-stroke penalty. You're not getting it up and down very often. It might just be a 2, but this one in particular is really bad. This is a 1, and this over here is a 0. In future months, I'll start teaching you how to rank them even negative sometimes. And what we are doing with these analyze, with these modifiers, is these are numbers that are either added or subtracted to that baseline number that we introduced in C, correct target. So let's take an example from a fairway view from start to finish. Let's pretend we are 140 yards to a back left hole location. The tens digit is 14, so our baseline number is half of that, which is 7, which means that our initial target is 7 yards right of the left edge of the green, which is 2 yards right of the actual hole location. This pin is located next to a water hazard, which is 3 extra yards. 7 plus 3 is 10, so our target needs to be 10 yards from the left edge of the green. The hole is located 5 yards from the left edge of the green, so our target, the center of our shot pattern, is 5 yards right of this hole location. I'm going to leave this right here for just a second so you can pause the video and really absorb these numbers and what they mean. Obviously, we're going to go through several more examples here, but I just want you to get a good feel for this from right here. For this next example, let's start with a drone overhead view. This is number 1 at Bentry Country Club in Dallas. You can see you've got some pretty deep bunkers on both the left and the right, but this hole is obviously located against the left-hand side. Now let's go down to a fairway view and see how the Decade math works for this hole. Let's do an example that's 167 yards. And the one thing that I do say that kind of helps the higher handicap players play with a little bit more conservative, just to feel a little bit more at ease, is I tell you if your average score is 75 or under to always round down. If your average score is over 75 to always round up. So a 2 handicap would be using the 160 baseline number. A 10 handicap would be using the 170 baseline number. It's only a yard difference, but it's a little helpful sometimes. For this example, we'll use the baseline number from 160, which again, the tens digit is 16. Half of that is 8. So 8 is our baseline number for how far we're aiming away from the left edge of the green, because the pin is on the left side of the green. The bunker on the left-hand side that the hole is located closest to is a little bit deeper, but the green really isn't running away very much, which is the main thing that actually starts making bunker shots really hard, because you simply can't stop it. So let's call the left bunker a 1 for our A analyze modifier. And now let's move our target another 1 yard to the right accordingly. This means that our overall target needs to be 9 yards to the right of the left-hand side of the green. But wait a second, since this is just a casual Saturday round, we don't have our pin sheet. What should we do in this case? Well, as I've said a number of times throughout these videos, I really want you to create the great habits to where they're just part of your DNA. They are just on autopilot. So just because you're playing a casual round at your home course does not mean I don't care if you go through these steps. What we can do is we can use the length of the flag stick as a reference to guesstimate how far the pin is from the edge of the green. Most flag sticks, in the USA at least, are about 7.5 feet long, so they're about 2.5 yards long. If you use that number for perspective, you can then pretend that you're just laying the flag stick down and guesstimate how many flag sticks the hole is located from the edge of the green. This particular hole is clearly located just over 2 flag sticks from the edge of the green, so let's call it 6 yards. That puts our overall target 3 yards to the right of this hole location. As I've said several times, I recognize that this seems like, a decent amount of information. It is. You are literally learning how to choose a mathematically correct target in just a few easy steps. So, what I always jokingly say in my seminar is, if your putting sucked, you would go practice your putting for hours on end. I can assure you most of your course management it's certainly not optimal. So taking a little bit of time, watching this video a couple times, I'm going to give some more examples throughout the next few videos, obviously, but really letting this information and these ideas soak in, I can assure you will knock quite a few shots off of your game literally overnight. It will require a little bit of work to understand the logic and the math though, and it will be the best time you ever spend on your golf game.